of creating a self-portrait using Adobe Illustrator. This one's going to dive more into creating the details of like your eyes, your nose, your mouth, just the basic details, laying them out. So as you can see, go back and watch number 1 if you have not. I've got some hair and I've got a head, I've got a ponytail, I've got an ear, my neck, and then my photograph. And you can see what photograph I'm starting off with. So what I'm first going to do is go in, now that I've colored these items, and I'm going to pull my layers in a little bit more. And I'm going to turn those to outlines so that we can see what we're doing. And you got to be really careful with this. Okay, it's not going to allow me, so that's fine. Just swapping. Now I can get into details. Okay. So, black. Facial details. And I personally use the pen a lot. I just feel very comfortable with it, and I know that I can adjust the stroke and the profile. Some people probably may use the paintbrush or the blob brush. I find the blob brush gives me so many points, it's annoying to edit. And the paintbrush I do use often, but I just like being able to control my points with the pen tool. So I'm going to use the pen, and I'm going to start with the basic of my nose. Now, this picture is awful. It's also cringeworthy to be staring at myself so close. But I can see the basic shape. I know that this is the point of my nose. I hope that your photo is a little bit better. And then I can see just a little bit of my nostrils. So I'm going to come in and just start with that. Just with an outline. Make sure you only have an outline on. I'm going to grab my nostrils. If you need to, look in a mirror. Anytime I've done a self-portrait, I'm also looking in a mirror, typically. This one's a little different. So I've got kind of the larger part of my nose. And then it swings back out for my nostrils. Okay, so that's not too bad, but this guy's odd. Grab your direct select. And I want this to have a significantly smoother kind of roundness. You don't want to have funny little bumps and stuff. Okay, that's not bad. Now, my favorite thing to do is change the profile. I love this profile one. I use it all the time in all kinds of different things, not just portrait. It immediately starts looking like a nicer looking nose. Now, I know I probably need to get a tiny bit of a nostril in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make it so small, but it's going to be there. Tiny. I can always change his coloring. I do not necessarily want him to be black, but I am going to make it darker. I'm going to copy and paste because I'm not going to waste my time making another one. And just utilize this guy here. Awesome. So then I can push these back. I want them behind that line. Obviously my nostril would sit behind this outline of my nose. So in that layer, I'm just going to move these two guys down. Great. So now he's kind of sitting there. You can't see it very well with the picture. Let's make it dark, even darker. We're just going to go with black so you can at least see it. Good? Okay. Next, my eye, and again, I understand anatomy, so I know I have this little indent in my eye. I hope you get a clear picture. So I'm going to start with the top, or the lower, of the inner eye. lashes. I'm going to leave him like that. I'm also going to change him. I'm going to swap this whole thing over to black. Do the same thing over here. Make sure I'm repeating this kind of inner eye look. Definitely not perfect, but I'm close. Now, notice I'm not going right here. I know a lot of this darkness is from the shadow of my eye. That's one thing I notice all the time when people are first doing their eyes is they want to just hug this white. You need to actually do the shape of your eye. Understand the anatomy of it. Okay, great. Next, I like to then go down and do the center of my lips. So I'm going to do these 2 marks. I can go back in and do more, but I don't like to have a big heavy line around my lips. So I'm going to go in here, start on my edge. Kind of dives down there. And hits. And you can do all these at the same if you want to change them at the same time, but I personally kind of like doing it as I'm going. I'd be very careful if you get this little dash mark, you're continuing your line, but what I really want to do is do a new line. So I'm going to be a little distance away from it. I can always go and edit that. I know that I have this little bit of a bump in the middle. Change the profile and just see where you're at. Okay, so it looks funny so far, but I do have the basic shapes in. So now I'm going to keep going. I'm going to add a little bit more on the eyes, and I'm going to add a little bit more on the mouth. So here's kind of my bottom lash line. If you're not getting your control panels for your stroke, just know sometimes you need to re-click onto your stroke to get it to show up. Try to show that in this next one. Again, I'm not going straight to the edge, but see how my control panel doesn't show up with my strokes? Click on it, then it does. There's my eyes. I'm going to give myself a little bit of the shape to my mouth. Oh, that was weird. I don't want to start that far. You can always hit Option if you need something to turn a little bit. Like I want that to go back up just a little. I probably want that to be really small. I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom. It's gotten ridiculous. Somehow my mouth looks huge, so let's see how that looks. Gotta always give yourself opportunity for some artistic licensing if something looks strange, and I can see right now that looks strange, even though I'm following the line. So be very careful. It's more about the anatomy and less about what's exactly in front of you in that photograph. And again, because I want it to be really nice and subtle, I'm going to change it to an even smaller stroke. And it's starting to come together. I know you can see some of these funny lines, but that's fine for now. Okay. So you want some color into those things. There's a few different ways to do that. I'm going to go in, lock, and create a color blocks layer using a pen. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to hug where I want white to be. So this is where I can leave out this little center point. I'll start over here. And you want to be pretty exact. You can always fix it if you need to. And that doesn't need to be black, it needs to be white. Great. Can't see anything right now. I'll put a background behind it, but that at least gives me the base of my eye. And let's go do the same thing over here. Looks like I got a little too far down, but I can go fix that on either of these points if I need to. Notice I'm not clicking and dragging at that like end point. And I will go fix this guy so that he gets kind of perfectly on there. So I could just unlock my head if you're really trying to see what some of this looks like. Great. And let's go get the center point of our eyes. The ellipse tool. I know the anatomy of an eye is a perfect circle. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use Shift. With my eye, my pupil, and the gloss of it. So my eye color is going to be a green of some sort. It's so dark in there that you can't really see it. So we'll go with that. This is going to be black. And this is going to be white. Now I can duplicate that. Bring that over this side. Now because my head is turned just a bit, I need to shrink this the tiniest amount. Atmospheric perspective, it would shrink, it would be a little bit smaller. Great. Okay, let's swap these back. So now what's weird is you've got some of this showing, right? And that's kind of strange. So, trick for that, you're going to use a mask. I'm going to grab this eye. I'm going to look at my layers over here and see where I'm at. So here is the white of eye. Perfect. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to Command-C to copy it, and then I'm going to lock this layer. Now, while I'm still in this layer, let's lock this just in case we were to get there. I'm going to Command-Shift-V to paste it in place right over top of the eye. Now I'm going to grab the pupil, the iris, the highlight, and that shape, and I'm going to Command-7, or you can go up to Object, Clipping Mask, Make, and now my pupil sits right into it. If you need to edit something with that, like the color, you can always dive back in by double clicking. Just when you start recreating, like there, if I wanted to change the color of it or add some details and I wanted it to still be masked within that eyeball shape, you can do that way. Just make sure to dive back out to the original, back, there. Now I'm in the original before you start creating artwork. It's really easy to accidentally get in there. So let's do the same over here. So here's this guy, just white too, just so we don't lose him. We're gonna copy, Command C. We're gonna lock him so I don't mess that up. And then I'm gonna Command Shift V on top. Grab everything, because every other layer is locked. And Command 7. I love Command 7. I use it all the time. So now that whole shape is within your eye. Woo, and it looks weird. So what I probably need to do is shrink this just a little bit. So when you're doing that, be very careful. So there's two different things that I need to work on for a second. I need to fix the shape of the mask. So notice how when I just click on this area, I have everything else locked. There's something with no fill. So that's that mask. I can go in and grab my direct select tool, and at this point I could come up and I could pull this guy a little smaller. It just looks way too big. And you're like, oh, well, white's showing beneath. Well, yes, that's because I'm inside the mask portion. And I'm going to go fix the other portion shortly. Okay. So now, oh, he's inside my different clipping mask. That one's the other eye. So we need to now go into this one. Oop, and grab this white down here. Takes a minute. You just got to give yourself a second to kind of fumble around with it. Let's block that. Let's make sure. Okay. Now I can do the same thing with pulling this up to edit to whatever degree you need to. And then if you have to, you could also get in there, unlock that facial details layer, pull this up. So now let's make sure I don't look so like bug-eyed. We're going to do the same thing on the top. Lock. This layer, unlock. That's my bottom white. See how I'm on this layer. That's fine. I'm going to pull him down now, and then I'll fix everything else. Lock. I want this clipping mask. Oh, I need to get out of my direct select. There we go. Now I'm on my mask. Notice I don't have a stroke or fill. And that's what I'm going to make a little bit smaller using this. All right. There we go. It's a little bit better. I do need this to come down a wee bit. Give yourself the direct. These are fine details, so they're going to take a little bit. I feel like too much of this white is showing. Right here. And I think what we'll do is when I get in, it's still way too big. There we are back. Notice it takes a little bit of time. I'm just being patient and waiting for the cues, the visual cues to show me. Okay, what I notice now is see how narrow the top part of my iris is showing? I need this guy to be about the same. Mm-mm. It's a little less bug-eyed. Still a little funny. Okay, but we're gonna move on for now and we'll come back. You don't wanna get yourself so stuck on one single area and like make the perfect eye and not have addressed the rest of your face. So we'll come back to that. Let's close. Let's just reevaluate where we're at. Once we get some eyelashes in there, that's going to make a big difference. All right, make sure you've hit save, Command S. And in the next lesson, I'll go into the mouth a little bit more, as well as the hair.